Now this wheel came from the manufacturer with that hole in it. I'm looking for some of these. There were a couple amongst all the parts when I first got the beast, and they looked really weird, but they work really well. I can't find any. I've looked. I'm even thinking about getting my blacksmith friend to make those, or try it here in the shop just for the heck of it. If anybody sees any of these, let me know. This one was my best one. It had a width of the blade about this wide. And I'll see if I can find the video where we snapped it off. It's a little cast iron plate we're doing. Get creative with fixtures. The thing I have is too tall for it, so we made up some different ways of holding it down yesterday. It was during a Richard King class here when we first got the beast running, and man, it was doing such a nice finish. I haven't ever got the same finish because I don't have that anymore. That taught me the importance of not relying on that mechanical scale on the beast. I said it and it came down just a little bit too much in depth. Snapped that thing right in pieces. So you see me, or see one of them, let me know. Now, kind of got a head cold, I guess. No, it's not a cold, it's just I'm all stopped up from allergies. So, pardon the voice. Today, we're going to continue on with the problem of this. Hi guys. Before we get to the meat of tonight's video, I want to clear up a few things that I noticed when I was editing the videos. Now, I'm using Bob to modify a nut for this arbor to balance this hub and wheel so we can make some gibs and work on the Bridgeport saddle with this grinder. Now this grinder is big enough to do the saddle. This is a 10 by 30 table and it'll work really nice. But I gotta get a good wheel on it. In tonight's video, it shows modifying that nut. And I made a comment, first thing was a comment about speeds and feeds. Yes, I know there's speeds and feeds. Kind of like guidelines. But I've always found that I don't know what kind of metal I'm usually turning unless I go buy it with a cert. I don't know how hard it is unless I go buy it. And most of the stuff I turn, I don't buy. Well, I bought the nut, but it's already made, so I have no idea what that was. And I go through my process of figuring out what to cut, how deep to cut, how fast to cut, what bit to use as I'm doing it. And basically, it's just trying to see. Now, on a project like this, I just removed enough in this little step right here. I didn't have a lot of trying out, but I kind of tried to address what I do. Second thing was Bob was not up to snuff. When I put my little camera on top of the automatic feed block for the threading, I noticed when I was looking at it, it was jiggling like hell. 30,000. Speed it up a little more. And I tracked that down to see what was going on, because I couldn't feel anything, but it sounds terrible on the video, and it looks like it's just vibrating like all get out. So I took it, and the mount's loose, one thing, from when it got dropped off the Bridgeport. Second thing was, there was a tiny bit of vibration, and I tracked that down to the deadgum base of bob not touching all its 4 points right now. It was clued into that when I looked at the video and I was tidying up the chuck and I saw the bob rock. Bob's not supposed to rock. This right here allows you to lock the spindle so you can do things like this, tighten up your chuck a little bit. So I started looking today, and that's what I found. One of the feet wasn't touching. So I don't know if it's settled, the concrete settled there. It's a 5-inch slab. I don't know, Bob's not that heavy, but it shouldn't rock. So I took care of all that and laid my hand upon it, and it doesn't vibrate anymore. It looks terrible in the video. Just, I saw it, so no snide comments. Or do comments. They count the same on YouTube, guys. Enjoy the video. See you later. This is the arbor for my balancing of the grinding wheel for the DoAll. Got a nice little balancing setup, and this is the only arbor I could find anywhere that would fit the hub on my DoAll pull grind hub. The problem is it's too dadgum short on the width here for this nut to attach to these screws. Now the nut has got a recess on one side where you could run it like this, and it's flush on the other side, but it's too short of threads on this arbor to attach with my hub. So what do? Well, if you're a machinist, you make a new nut. The problem is that it's a really, really weird thread. That, my friends, is a 3/4 by 28 thread. Now, they make such an animal. They also make a 3/4 by 27, a 36, all kinds of weird things. But nobody in Houston has one. And I need to get this done. So I'm going to sacrifice this nut. Not totally sacrifice it, but I'm going to modify it. I need about a 1/4 inch more depth for this to go in and hit this. So what I'm going to do, because I can't find a tap, and I don't have a threading bar small enough to go in and make that thread, I'm going to cut this nut back about 3/8, half an inch, and leave the threaded part there. Kind of like make a little nipple that sticks out here, so I don't have to mess with the threading it. I don't have to wait for a month to get a tap. And if I need this the other way, I can turn it around. So I don't think I'm hurting anything. And frankly, I need this for that grinder and maybe sometimes on a different grinder, but I'll just have to make a new bar if I need it. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, I don't know how many of you mess with lathes very much, but the bed of your lathe is where it gets most of its precision from. The spindle plays into it, but this bed is really important. So protect it. Whenever you put a chuck on something like this, or any lathe, use a piece of wood. Now I have an old block I've always used. It just hangs right there, and you can, if the chuck falls off, it won't ding up your ways. Won't hurt your chuck either. Now Bob's chuck is a thread-on chuck. And when you put it on, you got to remember that it can come off. One of the features of Bob is it's got a spindle lock. This right here allows you to lock the spindle so you can do things like this, tighten up your chuck a little bit. And it won't start up if you leave it locked in. It's got an electrical switch on it. But unplug it, let it go there. Now remember this, what screws on can unscrew off. So if you put this in reverse on the spindle, it can come off. So be very careful. I've never had that happen because I always think about it, but when I get older, it'll probably happen. So now we got to figure out what to do here. I don't like this, but this chuck has reversible arms on it, so I'm going to switch it around. I got to find some stuff to do so. I'll be back. I found some Allen wrenches that aren't metric. See if that one fits. Yeah, there we go. I'll lock this again. These have two bolts that hold them on. Seems I've been doing this all my life, changing these around. If I wasn't poor, I'm not poor. If I had a lot more disposable income and didn't need so many tools, I'd find me another one of these chucks so I could just have one set up one way and one set up the other. Always clean off this when you're doing it. You don't want anything hampering it. And these are keyed so they fit in there right. You don't have to be gorilla tight on these either. Now this chuck in this stuff looks like it's rusting, but it's not. Bob uses cutting oil instead of water-based cutting fluids. Got a built-in pump and a sump down there, and inside there's a lot of oil that I can turn on, and it comes out of this right here. Well, that oil splashes everywhere, and it leaves a film on all the tools. And I don't really see any reason to clean that film off because it's keeping them from rusting. It's just not nice and shiny, but this is a machine made to work. Speaking of nice and shiny, all the dead gum handles on my Bridgeport that I just bought brand new, and I thought they were plated. Turned out they're not anything but polished steel with no coating on them. They look like crap. So I got looking online and found several good videos on how to nickel plate at your shop without sending it off. And so we're going to do that to those handles. Now, I used to anodize my aluminum parts for telescopes I used to make in the shop all the time. And heck, it's no different, just uses a few simple chemicals. There's even some kits you can buy, but I just didn't think that the kits were necessary, you know? And I tighten this up where it just barely turns, and I find that when you're trying to put things in a lathe like this, a chuck, if you twist them, you get them pretty close to having this flush and running true. But we will see how close I am. All right, Bob hasn't been on for a while. Brakes on, speed set to 3,000 on 3. Don't need that. Let's go to gear 1. Pull it on. Make sure that's unplugged. Move this out of the way. Get that little block out of the way. And go from there. All right, everything's clear. That didn't work worth a flip. Things. It's probably Don's fault. Oh, watch from up here. All right. Let's see what we can use to make that better. You take this off. That ain't going to work up there. It's a new little slide I bought. I can make a little chamfer pretty easy, 7/8 of an inch long. Bob's going to enjoy that one. Another trick you can do on Bob is because these holders have a square face here, you can run them up and see what it looks like. Same as you can on a lathe that's got a quick change tool holder on it. They got a nice big square face. See how this works. Much better. You could see this. Not there. As you can see, when you push this in, it makes the needle go up higher, okay? So that tells me this is sticking farther out than the rest of it. And it says 65, 66, 67. And the lowest spot is about 55. So this is the lowest spot. To make it even, it needs to come out. Or the high spot over here, which is right in here, needs to go in. We'll loosen this up just a little bit. And I'm probably destroying the knurls on this thing. I mean, just can't help that. Let's see what that did by taking the pressure off. That's the high spot right there. That's the low spot. Back to the high spot up here. And that's pretty good right there. It's close enough for what this is going to do. Now, I don't know how hard that nut is. I know nothing about that nut, except it's got a knurl on it and a 3/4 inch by 28 thread. This tool's already set up. It's just a little piece of carbide in that. We'll see what it does. We're going to go up to higher speed. Right now that's at 270. There's 800. We'll just see what it likes to do here. That was pretty nice. Notice how it's chattering way out there, but as soon as I got into a smaller diameter, it stopped chattering. What I'm going to do is come this way on it, see how it cuts going this way. Cool. Yeah, let's see about getting old Bob going this way and this way. There's his feed. Didn't like that at all. You gotta remember, I'm not really holding this thing very tight. I'm not taking very much metal off because of it. Speed it up some. See, it needed a little more speed. let's go this right there. All that chatter is a combination of being so lightly held in that jaw. And also, I don't like a tip. Let's do something about that. Yeah, that tip's got a chip out of it. Let's fix that. We're going to fix it really quick by putting it in a different blade in and see how much better that works. I'm going to give it a little more tightness here. You have to be careful when you do stuff like this and worry about throwing it out of the machine. I'm destroying the nut, but I'm not really. I'm just modifying it. Another thing that reflects rigidity and chatter and stuff is how far tools stick out. Now this one's sticking out about 2.5 inches, and I'm going to make sure it's tight, and we'll see if that has any effect on it. Now I've busted it up to 1250 RPMs. Let's go back. Now, this is turning into a, what the hell's the right feed and speed for this application? When I'm hearing the chatter, I put my hand up on top of this and I can feel it vibrating. So I'm thinking that a lot of the chatter is coming from this out there, and the material and the speed and everything else that's going on. So what could I do about that? Well, the easiest thing to do is change the geometry of what I'm doing. This holder sticks out at least an inch farther than this one that I'm going to put in, and see about if we can make it work. We'll put that in, get it tight. And on short parts like that, it's easy to do this kind of stuff because you don't have to reach in so far. Let's check out Bob's new way wipers. Put a little oil on Bob. Bob's got these automatic oilers on it that put oil into areas it's needed. Let's take this, move it over one. Drop our tools everywhere. Try this. Now you notice I've got a lot less clearance here, so you got to be more careful. All right, back up. I'm running about 600. Oh look, chatter's all gone. And all I did was make the tool shorter. Okay, let's pump it up to, there's 25 thousandths depth of cut. Let's speed it up some so we can get a good bit of fish. There's 1050. 25 thou. So 30,000. Let's speed it up a little more. Right now I'm just trying to get it out of there. Let's go to 35 thousandths. That's the first bit of chatter I've heard in the whole thing. And all I did was change how far the stick out was. Granted, we're getting a smaller and smaller diameter. And to help that, I increased the speed quite a bit. Now that's as high as it'll go. That's 1250. Pretty good cut there. About 40 thousandths. That doesn't look too bad at all. Let's face this side here and take off a little ridge, put a little chamfer over there. You know, because I do so many darn different materials and things, I don't put a lot of stock into speeds and feeds. Because A, I have no idea what kind of carbide's on the end of that bit. B, I don't know how hard that material is. C, it's a bunch of math that I've found over the years because the work I do doesn't always work out. You got tool stick out, different geometries of the nose of your tool. I always end up experimenting. Just like we've done here. Okay. Hello, wife. Likes to. Hello, wife. Likes to be on YouTube.
But, just letting you know so.
I saw your thing. Can't believe a wife doesn't like to be on YouTube. Huh. Now, Bob does something that my Axelsons and all do. When you pull the cross-feed clutch and the transverse clutch at the same time, and if you got it set up in the right directions, it'll make a nice little 45-degree chamfer. So, you got to pull them at the right time and the right thing. Let's see, that one obviously isn't right, so how do I change, Bob? Go to the right there. And that goes in. And that goes away. So away and in is what I want. So let's bring it over here. Set it up about right. Don't want to take off too much at the first time. You got to experiment a little bit. So I'm going to touch off, and we'll pull both of these same time. Pull back. We'll do it one more time. From a little farther away. That was pretty nice. I could leave it like that. Okay, touched off. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. I'd like to do that up here. But with this setup, it's going to be hard. So I'm just going to hand file that just a little bit. Or let's take it out. I didn't mess up the knurls too bad. It's a little sharp. You know, that's going to be so hard to get in it, it just ain't worth it. I'm just going to take a hand file and file it down a little. So there's what I did. I just made it to where this will go in and catch my threads a little bit different. The thread's on, and now I've got more space for the hub to fit into. Let's go try it. Back in here in the grinding area. How's that, sports fans? That kind of solved my problem. And I haven't got the bolts in it, and I haven't got one of the forgot what they call them. One of the papers I made for it. This one, now, I haven't put the holes in there because I don't think I'm going to be running flood coolant on it just yet. And somebody said something about, well, your homemade, can't remember what it was, they called them, they said they'll fall apart. So I put this in some Thompson's water seal and soaked it a couple times. And it's held together, so I consider it waterproof now. But anyway, that one goes on this side, and some screws go in to hold it together. But according to some people that I've asked that are professionals at grinding, they say that I need to true the wheel up on the sides before I balance it. Now, this balancer, let's see if you could see it here. Now this balancer has these two knife edge rollers on precision bearings that hold the shaft and roll with it as it turns. So there's hardly any friction at all. And the same thing over here. And then a cute little nut we made. And so this will tell me where it's heavy. Now this wheel came from the manufacturer with that hole in it. That, I've never seen one, but I assume that's a lightning and balancing hole that they put in there. So, and that's the way I'll have to balance it, by drilling a hole, because this one doesn't have movable weights. And I'm not about to use a stick-on weight like they do on tires on something like this. And another thing is, I'm going to clean this hub up some, but they say to mark this wheel and the hub and the spindle so you know the way it was when you ever have to change it and put a different wheel on it. Right now, did you ever watch SV Seeker, Doug, in his homemade 74-foot steel boat? Doug bought a shaft and a hub for his propeller that did not have any blades for it. And they cast blades for it in his backyard. He built one of these big enough to where he could spin balance and test that blade setup in his backyard. Still wasn't perfect when they got out in the water. He had to mess with them a little bit, but he finally got it. The same principle. I'm finding that it's turn it a little bit and see where it ends up. Seems to be a little heavy over here. Now I've got to do some more modifications on something. Let's dig in the old cabinet and see what I got. Here it is. And now what I'm going to do with this is pull that bolt out and let this stick to my magnetic chuck so it'll be nice and flat. That'll be about right here. I'm going to break it, so I better take this off right now. Right there. And basically, that's going to go into this like that. And I'm going to shorten it some where I can get up into this area. And that'll be tall enough to be able to get the sides on both sides. Then I'll use another setup like this right here. And this is the way it goes. The wheel spins like this. And this diamond will do the face or the edge of. Same as that one. Only a little bit more refined. But we're getting closer to get you together. I just got to balance that wheel right there. And life will be good. Thanks for watching.